So you're
You're good to go. Mm-hmm.
Because it doesn't show me on live. That's why.
Oh, okay. Yes, you're live. Yes, you're live. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Baskal Korkis live Q&A. Happy hump day, everybody. Who out there is excited to find out about Airbnb? Let's make our money work for us, people. Big money, big money, big money.
Hannah's excited. Hannah's super excited. Hannah's excited. I'm excited. Let's go. So everybody, I think you saw my most recent story. I just got offered, or I just submitted a special offer. Gave a client, they're asking for 4 months stay, and I gave them 4.5 months for $60,000 at one of my properties. So super excited to see that get booked. It's I've never had a single person pay $65,000 for that short of a period. I think the most I've ever had someone pay was like $32,000. So kind of psyched, you know. More good stuff coming. We got the ALF under contract in Historic 1, so that's going to be great. You know, single family homes are going for $1.5 million. We're going to have this property converted into 10 units for about $1 million. So our ROI on this thing is going to be huge. It's huge. So it's exciting. Good things are coming. We're about to close on Beach Drive in 2 weeks. Thank you guys for everyone who invested, who's teaming up with us. You know, everything's going awesome. You know, pushing through it, and we're getting there. And I think you guys saw the exorcism too. That was pretty funny. Blessing the properties. I always like doing that to make sure that, you know, I get God's blessing in everything we do. So, how's everybody doing? Hope everyone has a great week. How are you guys doing out there? I can't see any comments, so let me know if there's anything.
Who do we have coming up?
All right. Let me pull up my notes. I'm going to get ready with the Airbnb questions. And let me know when Teddy's on. When he submits a request, he should be submitting a request soon.
Okay.
All right, so tonight we're going to have on. Is Teddy on?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Hey, Baskal.
Teddy, how are you?
I'm good. How you doing?
Doing very good. So for all of you guys who don't know, this is Teddy. Teddy's one of my clients. He's doing a lot of big things over in Miami. He actually rents out high-end homes in the Miami market. He's been doing Airbnb for about 2 years, and I wanted to invite him on to answer a lot of your questions, to give you another perspective of way to make money through Airbnb. Teddy, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Doing great. Can you hear me well?
Yeah, I can hear you great. Can you hear me well?
All right. I can hear you good.
Awesome. All right.
I was going to explain who he is.
You can just talk.
Okay. Hey, Teddy, what's up? Hannah here. Can you please introduce to everyone who you are, what you do, and how long you've been doing it?
Hey, guys. My name is Teddy. I'm 25, and I got introduced to the short-term rental Airbnb business about 2 years ago when I moved to Miami. And so I actually was a videographer at first, and that's why I moved there. And I was living in this apartment, and the business kind of fell through. And it was in Brickell, it was a 50th floor apartment. And I actually paid my roommates to leave and started doing the business in that unit. I saw the numbers, and it kind of was, started there. And I was like, wow, I really like, the numbers here. And I started getting good at it and kind of expanded from there.
Awesome. So the first property is you basically, apartment hacked your property as an Airbnb. What do the numbers look like?
Right. Yeah. So I ended up moving into that apartment. It was like super luxury. It was right in Brickell. Obviously, you're not supposed to be doing it there, but that was my in because I signed it with the three guys. We were living there, and we were actually going to build like a little videography marketing company. And it didn't. Obviously, I said it didn't really work out. So I met a few other guys doing it, but they were doing it with single family homes, and they were like, "Hey, that apartment, has a great view. It would do really well. My rent was like $4,600 a month.
Wow.
I assumed the lease, and then the first month we did like over 10K. It was like I think it was like 12.5, and that's why I was like, wow, a couple of these would do pretty good. And then I realized, obviously, like it's a super luxury building. There was other people living there, and it didn't really last too long. But that was my kind of like tester to see if it would work. And I already was in there, signed the deal. So yeah, that's kind of like the rough numbers that I was producing with that apartment.
So you basically got the taste in your mouth. You got addicted. You wanted to do more of it. After that, what was your next move?
So while I was still there and still had that unit, like I said, I was doing videography, and I ended up there was going to be this entrepreneur event in Bali that my friend Sarah was throwing, and she was going to have like different speakers at the event. One of them was not my friend at the time, my friend now, Jason Stone, with the Instagram page Millionaire Mentor.
Yeah, Jason Stone, I know.
Yeah. So I ended up asking Sarah, I was like, hey, I'd really love to come. I'd love to do, film for Jason and come out to Bali. She ended up introducing us. I went out there, and I had guests at my unit in Brickell at the time. And there I was like, okay, like they're like paying me, I'm making money from that, making a little from being in Bali. And I was in the car with Jason, and we were driving through Bali, and I was telling him about the numbers that my unit was producing, and he was like, I have a house that's just sitting there that I'm trying to sell. Maybe you could, do it with my house. We'll talk when we get back. So long story short, when we got back to Miami, I sat down with him. He showed me his house. It was this beautiful, like 4,000 square foot, white, like new house, white marble floors, beautiful pool in the back, big yard, like perfect criteria for a good Airbnb for like a group of people.
Mm-hmm.
And I signed a management deal with him, and that was the next move. And then I realized that the apartment buildings really weren't the best as far as longevity, and the single family homes, the bigger ones for bigger groups of people, were the next like move that I wanted to make.
So your first move was, kind of house hacking, apartment hacking into Airbnb, and the second move is basically being a property manager for Airbnb.
Yeah.
And then once you saw that, you saw the numbers looked a lot better, and you liked
Right.
it. So tell us more. What else did you do after that? After you were, managing Millionaire Mentor's house?
So after that, I took the profits I was making from that to try to save up as much as possible, and then I realized, the management deals were good, but when if you sign your own lease, then you can make whatever you make past the rental amount. Let's say it's 5,000. You keep all of that back rather than taking a smaller percentage on the management side. like the upside to the management was, okay, you're not putting any money up front, but the downside would be, not as much money to make. So I was willing to take more risk. And I found another house in the Coconut Grove area of Miami, which is like super lush, trees around, very expensive like area, close to Brickell, close to a lot of things. And I found a house actually. I signed it without telling them what I was going to do. And I don't recommend this, but obviously it's really hard. Like now I have a different model because, I've scaled and I want to build an actual legit company. But at the time I was like, okay, I'm willing to take the risk, get my feet wet, get involved, just do the deal. And so I did it, and it worked out for basically the whole lease. And then they kind of found out, and then I stopped that one too. But now, my model is I'll reach out to these owners. Obviously, I have a realtor.
So to recap what you just said, so first you were being a Airbnb property manager, and you were renting Jason Stone's house, Millionaire Mentor's house, and you noticed that it was working out really well, but you could only make your percentage off of the profits. So you got a property management cut. If you don't mind telling us, what was your average property management percentage you were receiving?
So actually, I would do like 25% off of the gross.
So 25% of the gross revenue. And on average, what was the gross revenue for a 4,000 square foot awesome house in Miami?
We were doing like 15, 20K a month.
Got it, 15, 20K a month. So you're bringing in about $35,000 to $5,000 a month in revenue by property management.
Yeah, and actually there was one month where we did a couple of months in the high season where we did like close to 30.
Nice. So $7,500 of income from managing one property. That's awesome.
Right. Yeah. Not too bad.
Yeah, not too bad. So then you saw, okay, if I could take additional risk by renting the property myself, I can have all the upside. So when you took on the additional risk, what were you bringing in at that time per month, and then how much roughly were you keeping?
So my rent there in the second house that I got after Jason's was around $6,500. Okay. And I was doing, on a low end like 12, and on a high end again like close to 20. It wasn't as big as Jason's, but it was a very unique property. I called it like the jungle house. So It was really good. It looked really cool. It had a pool in the backyard. Basically like anything, 4 bedrooms and up with like a nice pool, big backyard will produce kind of the same numbers. That's why there's kind of like a threshold with the property. Like, a $3, $4, $5 million house, you might not be able to make as much as you would with a cheaper house. Maybe
your ROI might not be as good since it costs you more upfront, and you can't really recoup it in the amount of days rented or the amount of rent received. Right. It's a lot less people that can afford that type of property.
Yeah, it's easier for people to pay, $1,000 a night rather than $3,500 a night.
For sure, yes.
In market, if you have private clientele that you can build up, like maybe, but I'd like to stay in like the $1 million mark.
Affordable luxury.
Yeah, exactly.
So after this, you had additional success. Again, you took on a little bit more risk. Airbnb being a property that didn't have a legit corporate lease, and so from here, what did you learn from that point? What was your next move?
So then I was like, you know what? it's not worth it, because like if you sign a lease and start doing it and you're 6 months in and they find out, you know, they could sue you for the remainder of the lease, and then all the money you just made, you're fighting a lawsuit. You know, it might be a wash. So it's like, I'd rather not do that again. And you know, I started to say, hey, obviously I'm working with my realtor. My realtor would be in touch with the owners, but we would have to reach out to 50 owners to get one person to be like, maybe, and then we still have to sell them on it.
So the question comes to the $1 million question that everybody wants to know. How did you start convincing people to agree to take a corporate lease?
So basically, if you know, we kind of had a little pitch, and it would go like this: hey, I have a client. This is my realtor talking. Hey, I have a client that has really high end clientele that wants to come to Miami and stay, and he provides housing for them. And on every lease, there's like a little check mark that the subleasing. As long as that's checked off, you're good. Or there can be an addendum that says that's more in depth. But basically, either the check mark or the addendum, we would say, basically get them to agree to the subleasing without kind of flat out saying the word Airbnb, because everybody's like scared of that word.
Yeah.
But hey, you know, I understand that you might be a little skeptical, but we'll give you another deposit, you know, so first, last security and security, or we'll pay you 15 to 25% more than what their list price is on the rental. Or some people will be like, hey, I want 6 months up front, or a year up front. But honestly, I never did the 6 month or a year up front. It just, at that point, I would just buy a house. But yeah, so it would offer more in rent, or more in rent and an extra deposit. It basically, whatever they decide to agree to is that's what we did.
Yeah, I had a company, a medical company. They liked the quality of my properties because of how clean we provide our properties, the extra air filters, the water filters, the non-VOC paint, the low VOC product, very clean, green property. And they wanted to rent my properties to sublease to their medical patients. And I agreed to it if they would pay me the full year up front. And they cut me a check for the full year.
Right. So that's another option, because if it's like $5K a month and you have the money to put up a full year, it would be like $6K, and then you're covered, they're covered, and I feel like a lot of owners would go for that rather than extra money in rent. But I'd rather diversify that amount of money and get 3 of them rather than put it all into one.
For sure. I definitely understand. It's all market dependent, because depending on your market, you know, there could be a supply issue. And most of the markets I pick, there's a very constrained supply. So I have one of few properties that meet the requirements of the target audience I'm going after.
Right.
So they don't really have too many options. So it worked out for a good deal for both of us. So now you convinced people to, you convinced owners to accept a property. So right now, how many rental properties do you currently have that you are have corporate leases with?
So at the beginning of the year, I ended up timing them pretty close together, and I signed 3 at the beginning of the year. All, you know, 4 or 5 bedroom with the pool in the back. One's on a lake. Kind of that same, you know, criteria of the previous houses that I dealt with. I wanted to stick with that because I knew that worked. So I have 3 currently right now.
Awesome. And I think, are they all on average around $6,000 a month for the rent?
Yeah, two of them are a little cheaper, and then the most expensive one is the 65. So one's like 41, which is an incredible deal. I don't know how I got that deal, but they actually asked for a couple of extra deposits. And then the other one is 51, and then the third one is 65.
Got it. So about, it looks like probably 5,000 on average. And
Yeah.
what would you say your electric, internet, cable, water, sewer, garbage, maintenance, pool maintenance runs on average for the month? All in.
All of them together
Yeah, just per property.
per property, FPLs are like 500. Those 650 with water and sewer. Wi-Fi 700, 750. Maybe 750 to 1,000, I would say, because then there could be little miscellaneous things.
Awesome. So 750 to 1,000. So let's just say $6,000 a month on average between the three. Some lower, some a little higher. What are you looking for on the average nightly rate for your units? For the type of $1 million home that you're renting out, 4 bed, 5 bed type of home.
So it depends. It varies with the high season and the low season. Obviously, winter in Miami is more of the high. But I would say on average on the weekends, like 750 a night on the weekends, and then on the weekdays closer to maybe like 450 to 499 on the weekdays.
Awesome. Now, do you have any specials like 3 day, 7 day, or 1 month specials? Like discounted rates?
So I do on the weekends just 3 night minimums,
Mm-hmm.
and on the weekends I'll do like a 2 night. But let's say I have somebody that checks in on a Monday and then checks out on a Wednesday, and then somebody else checking in on a Friday
Mm-hmm.
for the weekend. I like to not do the one night, but if I jack up my price to like 1,000 and they pay the cleaning fee, I'm making $1,250 for that one night, or my cleaning fee is more than that, so I make money on the cleaning as well.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, if somebody wants to book a night, I'll do that, no problem.
Awesome. So you basically will jack up a single night rate, but you're not actually an overall multi-night discounted rate at this time.
No, I mean I think on the app they say, hey, would you like to do for 7 days a discount? And I think I actually do, but I haven't got that. I haven't got the 7 days. Usually, people come in and want to stay just for the 3 days, but I think I do like 10% or 5% for 7 days, and then maybe like 10% for the month
Mm-hmm.
of a discount.
Yeah.
So I do have that, but because when I first was setting up my listings, it asked, hey, do you want to give a discount for the 7 days? And I think I do have like 5% and then 10% if they want to book the month. But like I said, I haven't got anybody that has inquired for a week or a month. Just a lot of like short term. So it's a lot of work with the 3 properties, 3 different guests. I'm doing like 28 cleanings a month.
Yeah, it's a lot of cleanings. So, Hannah, you had a question?
Yeah. Hey, Teddy. Someone here on YouTube has a question for you. Oscar is asking for the houses that you rent. Do you do any updates or remodel the house to make it maybe look more luxurious, to kind of up your price more? Is there anything special that you do?
Yeah. If you find a house that's furnished already, it's tough to do anything because the furniture is already there. But yeah, if I get a house completely empty, I'll make sure I get trendy, cool furniture art on the wall. Maybe do a mural on the wall. put lights outside, make it look good in the pictures, and attractive for people to want to come and stay and go on vacation. But yeah, as far as if we get, I'll talk with the owner obviously because they own the properties. Hey, can I paint the wall? I'll paint it back when we're done. Whenever we're done, yeah, we'll do that. We'll do that for sure.
Okay. So a lot of cosmetic items that you'll do, but nothing, no full remodels or anything like that. Which makes sense because if you only have a 1-year lease, you don't want to dish out $50,000 to, well, if you're only going to keep it for a year. Now, based off of what we were talking about earlier, what is your occupancy rate for your houses, the luxury houses you're renting?
So I would say this year for 2021 is actually more on the upside rather than the past 2 years. I guess it's because things start opening up. Florida specifically has not really shut down like the other places in the country. So we've been pretty lucky this year, 2021. I would say over 50%, but like 50 to like 60%.
50 to 60%. Okay.
But that's what it says on my platform. But I think for this year we're doing a little bit more.
Got it. And I remember you mentioned to me previously, because I'm your accountant of your taxes, you told me that about 5% comes offline. You'll get some offline high-end clients that will contact you, or agents will contact you to book your properties.
Yeah. Yeah. So I have different friends and club promoters in Miami that know what I do. So if they have clients that come in for the weekend, they'll most likely hit me up. But usually, if they don't hit me up a month before, I'm already booked for the weekend.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
So so they need to, the weekdays usually I'm open, but on the weekends I'm usually booked.
Awesome. So what would you say, just to kind of final out the numbers side of the questions that we have, what would you say you're generating in a month on each location?
On each location,
On average.
The gross numbers are like 13.
So your gross is 13. Your average cost is roughly conservative, and your average cost is roughly 6. So you're netting like 7,000 a property. You're roughly bringing in $21,000 between the 3 properties a month, on average, high season, low season, stuff like that. So it's really good, $21,000. And I believe you said that you paid first, last, and security, sometimes double security. So your initial cost was $20,000 to acquire the property. And I think you said it was $15,000 for your furnishings normally per unit. So upfront cost $35,000 to generate $7,000 a month times 12, $84,000 a year. It's a really good ROI. It's a really good side hustle.
Right. Yeah, for sure. So yeah, the initial cost for all 3 was, with the extra deposits, probably like, I don't have the exact number, but it was over 60,000.
I mean, all 3 locations.
Maybe 7. All 3, probably like 70,000 with the furniture as well.
Yeah, that's what I figured. $20,000 per property, $60,000 between first, last, and double security, and then $15,000 per unit. So it's $35,000 per property. So you're looking at $105,000 total is between your first, last, and security and your furnishing per unit.
Right.
So 105 roughly. But 105,000 to generate 210,000, or not even more than that, it's 21,000 a month. So you're generating 210 plus 42, so you're generating $252,000 a year. You're bringing in almost 250%, which is awesome.
Right.
So I remember you telling me that you had like Meek Mill's rent from you. How was it renting to Meek Mill's and like other stars?
So at Jason's, like I said, it was like this mansion style looking house. What like big 2-story white marble floors with the pool in the back. So we got a lot of music video requests, and we did some parties there as well. So I guess a few guys before him did like a music video there, and that was a great market because we could charge 3,000 for the day for a couple hours, 8 hours maybe for the music video. So I guess one of his people saw somebody else doing a music video there. So they reached out to my partner at the time. Hey, we want to do a music video here. So, Meek Mill, it was actually a music video. Gucci Mane and Meek Mill. They're on the balcony, like doing their thing at Jason's house. And Jason like, is Meek Mill at my house?
So what's it called? What's the song? So we can look up, so we can see what the house looks like.
That song called, I don't know. I have to look it up. I don't know what the song was called off the top of my head.
So I heard once about the story where this guy ended up renting his house, and then later ended up seeing his house, or his friend ended up seeing his house in this like porno. So they rented his house to film a porn movie, and his friend's like, "Isn't this your house?" And he's like, "Oh my god, I'll burn all the furniture now." Yeah.
I'm sure there was a few of those that went on as well that we don't know about.
Oh man. So that was some of the funny stories. So tell me a couple of your like horror stories or Airbnb. Give me one Airbnb horror story.
Oh my god. Well, do you want like a guest problem or like a city problem? Because I kind of want to say what could happen if the city comes after you and charges you and puts a lien on your house.
Okay, yeah. Give us the, if you're renting an Airbnb in an area that you shouldn't, nightmare. Give us that nightmare.
Yeah, so Airbnb's been around for a long time, and the city of Miami has been trying to regulate it, and it's difficult to in a way. So there's certain areas where you can actually get licensed. Jason's house was one of them, but we weren't licensed at first. So we were doing our thing, and then we actually did get licensed. So you could still get attacked by the city even if you're licensed. So we were doing it through Corona. We're licensed, we're legal, we're everything. They sent us a letter. Hey, you're not allowed to rent during Corona. And we were like, I was like, whatever, let's do it. We had this guy that rented from New York, and he was there for 30 days. So it wasn't like, we were doing a lot of stuff. All of a sudden, after he checked out, I go to the property and I see a paper on the door. It says, $30,000 lien against your house. You must pay within this amount of days, or we're gonna put the lien on your house. So I see this, and I'm not making on a good end I'm making $7,500, but $30K is a decent amount of dough. So I was like, oh my god. Jason found out about how you had to tell Jason, and that was just the $30K. There was a party that happened that we got fined $5K. So now we're fighting $35,000 worth of fine.
Wow. With
the city. So I had to hire a lawyer, and he just went in there, did his thing, and he ended up getting it down to with the $5K and the $30K to $10,000 in total. So it's like 25%. But still, we had to come out of pocket $10,000 plus the lawyer fees, which is $2,500. So it's like $12,500. So cut into a lot of the profits. So if you get fined that much, it could be very detrimental and not be worth it. So you got to be careful and really like bob and weave and listen. Probably shouldn't have rented during COVID if we knew that was going to happen.
The interesting part, though, is the fact that you said you was renting there for 30 days. There was a rule that you're not allowed to short-term rent during COVID. But if someone did come and stay, they had to quarantine for 2 weeks. And the person stayed for a full month. So it really, was kind of within the rules. But the funny thing is, what you guys need to know, is when you have a public nuisance violation, and that's probably the type of violation you received, when you have a public nuisance violation by the code department, you are, in a democratic city, you are guilty till proven innocent, and normally you gotta pay something for them to go away. It's almost like the mob, to be honest with you. They function very similar to that way. You gotta pay us, you go our way, or, we're gonna basically take you out. And it's unfortunate. That's why I'm very, very picky. People ask me, like, why don't you invest in Miami? I said, because even though it's Florida and we're a red state, Miami's really blue. Like certain parts of Tampa, I don't invest because it's really blue. And the rules are really, can be very constricting to your business's development. So I'd rather not fight the system. I'd rather go with an area that wants to work with me so I can help it grow and we grow together.
Ton of headaches, honestly, throughout the whole journey. Finally, the 3 I have now is in areas where I've researched, I've studied the market, where it's still, they still could mess with you, but I make sure my grass is cut, my trash is good, my guests aren't throwing parties. I'm very specific on the listings. Okay, absolutely no parties, or we're going to charge you $2,500 if we know you're having a party. If you get a trash line, we're charging you. It's very clear. So when people book it, it's hard to scale and operate honestly in Miami. So at this point, I'm taking the cash that I'm making.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna it, and I'm starting to look in other areas where we're not going to have so much of a headache, and you can operate and scale faster and without headaches. Because at the end of the day, freedom and peace of mind is better than making a ton of cash sometimes. And you can still make good cash in areas where it's more regulated, that lets you do your thing.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. It's better to have more consistency and predictability with your income with less headache. ROI on time is really important. We were talking about that earlier today, right? The ROI on your time, but the total value is more than just how many dollars are you making in whatever your investment option is.
Hey, Teddy, we have a question for you. Someone here is interested in doing an Airbnb in Florida, but they're wondering if it's worth it if you're not immediately within walking distance of restaurants or the beach or anything like that. Are any of your properties within walking distance or not? What's your take on that?
Actually, that's a great question. So Miami is really bigger than people think. There's a ton of residential homes that are not walking distance. Anywhere where you actually rent, you kind of, unless you're in South Beach, you need a car to go anywhere, or you need to take an Uber. So actually, every house that I've had is not walking distance. I saw a little loading screen. I don't know if I cut out there, but all the houses and any houses I've had are not walking distance to restaurants. They're, you need a car. They're the closest one to the beach is like 10 minutes in a car to the beach. But no, oh yeah, you can have success in homes that are not like right in the action. Actually, you're better off being a little bit in an area where also you have the neighbors too. So if you go into an area where you have like rich neighbors to the left, right, and the front, and they see new people coming in and out, leaving trash outside, you're going to have a lot of, first of all, you're dealing with the landlord. Then you're dealing with all the neighbors. And the neighbors talk to the city. So I'm with you're dealing with so many different people that could call you and complain to you. And then those complaints can translate into getting fined. And that messes with your business. But to answer the question, yes, you don't have to be like walking distance to things.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
So Teddy, last question regarding numbers, which is on average, what would you value the cost of each home you're renting? Like market value.
So I have one that is in an area where it's not like the house is nice, it's renovated nice on the inside, and and the pool is really nice in the back. I would say that one is probably like $550, and then the most expensive one is like $850, and then I have one like kind of right in the middle. So I would say from like 500 to closer to $1 million.
All right, nice. So higher end properties, luxury properties that people would want to come visit in large groups. So Teddy, do you have any questions for me?
Yeah, more like affordable, like you said before.
Affordable luxury.
Yeah. So I'm sorry, you're loading here. Does everybody hear me? Do you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, there you go. We're going in and out for a second. What was that again?
I said, do you have any questions for me?
Yeah. On the, so we spoke before, and my goals from this are to start, and that's the main reason. I hired you at the beginning of the year to do my accounting and numbers and bookkeeping and everything. I'm sorry, I hear sorry, I heard noise in the background. It's distracting me. So I'm at the point where very soon I'm going to want to purchase my own, because as you can see, dealing with another variable like a landlord, yeah, there's a lot less money up front, but after 12 months, if you have a bad blood, something goes wrong, they can be like, hey, I don't want to do this anymore, rather than putting a little bit more up front, having less overhead in rent, and then owning them. Where's my question going? Yeah, so
owning versus renting from someone.
His goal is to own, is what he's saying. But and it makes a lot of sense. One thing a lot of people don't know is that once you own an Airbnb for a number of years in the same location, you have actually an efficiencies of scale. You have so many ratings on that one specific property. It gives you a higher view, more views on Airbnb. It has return customers. You have people talking about your property. If you're moving properties every few years, you're not even hitting your efficiencies, Because eventually you're going to go for 50%, 60%, 70% occupancy because you're going to start having return clients renting from you. And, that's a market that, you're building the business, you're building your brand. Once you hit year 3, you're going to definitely work on hitting your momentum. Year 5 is even better.
Right.
So that's really been helpful for me with my Airbnb business, is having the quantity of reservations.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the next step that I want to take. So actually, you can scale so quick because you can sign a lease and start renting it out the next day or whenever you decide. Buying obviously is a longer process, and since I'm going to have to transition from my rentals, which I want to keep for the cash flow, into starting to own, I also want to be able to buy one, and then if I see another good deal, buy another one quickly so I can scale up to 10 and don't have to take 10 years to do that. So my question would be, how fast can you start, buy your next one and buy your next one with the proper income, with your tactics and models and the HELOC and everything?
For sure. One thing to consider not regarding buying, but regarding what you currently are doing in renting, is that you have 1-year leases. Start signing longer leases. This way, you know that you have a secure business. Because eventually, the owner could find out how much money you're making and say, "Forget this. I'll do this."
Right.
And then they could just come and take over. And there's been times where people that have commercial businesses in a plaza, and the owner would figure out how much money the business is making and non-renew the property and just take over the business and run it on their own because they wanted to bring in that revenue.
Yeah.
The longer the lease you have, the better. The longer the lease you have, the less likely they can increase it on you, and because they think you're making a ton of money. So that's an option. Now, regarding getting a loan, Airbnb profitability and qualifying for loans are different. So now we're talking about qualifying for a loan. If you're a W-2 individual, you can go off of 1-year W-2 and get a loan. If you're running your own business, though, it'll take 2 to 3 years of tax returns to show the bank, and truthfully, it's Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. It's not the bank. We have multiple lenders that have different pricing models, but they all have the same underwriting because the loans, the money itself is coming from Fannie and Freddie. And their underwriting says for a commercial or for an LLC, you have to have 2 years tax returns minimum. And what's going to end up happening is they're going to take your net income and divide they're going to add the 2 years together and divide by 2. They're going to come up with that number. So if you made, say, $70,000 1 year and then you made $210,000 the next year, they're going to say the average is $280,000 and you have an average of $140,000. So now let's just say you're in 2022 and you're in quarter 3 or quarter 4 of 2022. They're going to say, please provide me your P&L statement for the first 3 months of the quarter. So you can have quarter 1 P&L statement. That quarter 1 P&L statement, they're going to want to see your profitability. And they're going to want to see that your profitability is in line to prior year's numbers. So even though you have they're giving you an average income of 140, they're going to want to see you do close to 210 like the prior year. So they're going to want to see you do 25% of 210 or $52,500 to make sure that you're still making at least the same amount of money as prior year. The goal with the bank is having your ability to repay. That's their goal. They want to make sure you can make your payment. They don't care how good of a deal you got. They don't care if you put down 50% or 70% down. They don't care how great your credit score is. They want to make sure that you can repay. They do look at your credit score and other factors to assess your probability of you being able to repay. So that is when you're going to get Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac conventional debt. You can obviously get non-conforming, non-conventional debt, which is not involving your tax returns. It doesn't involve certain factors. It could be more on your actual personal income. Those interest rates are higher than the 2.99, 3.25 rates that are out there today. They're probably getting more like the 4.5 rate. And it might be 30-year AM or 25-year AM. But because of the more accessibility to those type of loans, they have less qualifications. Because they have less qualifications, they charge a little bit more for the risk. And those, we have some, bank statement loans, where it's basically they request you to submit your bank statements for the last X number of months, whatever they want, and they say, show us how much you're making, we're going to give you a loan. Those loans do normally require you to put down 25% on those type of deals, 25, 30%. So there's lots of options.
What would you say the rates are on those non-conventional loans that you're talking about?
4.5.
Okay.
So they're affordable loans. They're very, and in my opinion, they're low for the risk that they're taking and the reduced documentation. The cost is low. And, I was getting loans when I started 15 years ago, when I was like 19, 16, 17 years ago. My loans were 6%, 7%, and 8%. And 8% was still a good deal. So it's not how much money you're paying to borrow the money. It's what are you getting out of the borrowing the money? What are you doing with the money? If you can borrow at 8%, but you're returning 18%, then that's still a good deal. You're making a 10-point spread. So now you're making money work for you instead of you working for your money.
Got it. So
Awesome.
I'll be able to get a loan with the Airbnb income.
So
it's not the Freddie Mac.
So yeah, you are, based off of what I see, and I don't want to go into your personal finances on here, but based off of what I see and what I hear, by 2022, we're going to have a track record to supply the banks for the approval of a loan.
Perfect. Sounds good.
So remember, guys, the bank wants to give you the money. Their business is giving out money, and they only make money when they give out money. What we need to do is supply them everything they need to say yes. Because as long as I already know what they need to check off the boxes. What each box is for them to say yes. So as long as we check them off, I don't even submit documents until I know ahead of time this is going to work. So what we do with my clients is I prepare them ahead of time. I work on getting everything in order and fixing all of the problems, smoothing out their finances to make it very easy for the bank to see, yep, this person checks off every box here, we can give them the money. Compared to having sloppy books and sloppy tax returns and not being able to have it understandable for a bank to understand. Because they're not accountants, they're banks, so they need to have a standard format that you need to supply them your documents. Awesome, Teddy. Well, if you don't have any other questions, it was great talking to you, and come back next time.
That's exactly what you've done for me, obviously.
I'm sorry, say that again? You're cutting in and out.
Awesome. It was great being on here. I appreciate it. Thank you. It was awesome talking with you and being on. Thank you for inviting me on. I'm still cutting in and out?
Yeah. But what we'll do is we'll bring you back in 6 months and we'll see how your progress is going.
You hear me now?
You're kind of breaking up. You're kind of going in and out some. We'll see you in 6 months.
You hear me?
You're breaking in and out. Hannah, I think we're good. So Teddy, we'll see you back in 6 months and bring us more of your success and maybe more Airbnb horror stories. I think tonight we have another guest coming on. She's a single mother of two. She has about $30,000 saved, and she wants to know what should she do with that money. Should she do a short-term rental? Should she do a long-term rental? She wants to figure out what's the best option for her in her scenario. How's it looking, Hannah?
She's not on here.
Oh, you don't see her right now. So you remember what her name was?
Mika.
Mika. So Mika had a question. She's a single mother. She has two kids. She has about $30,000 saved, and she wanted to know what is the best option for her, given her situation. Now, before we talk about your money, we have to really think about time. How much time do you have? Because depending on the time you have, can determine what can you do. Can you take on a side hustle? Do you have that ability? So if you do have the time, or you determine to make the time for your side hustle, Airbnb can be a good option. You just got to make sure that you're checking off all the boxes, that you're renting in the right location, that you're getting the right lease, and that you're setting up for success. Because as a business, in any business, it's easy for you to lose money, not just make money. In Teddy's example, it cost him roughly $20,000 for first class and security, and about $15,000 for furnishings. So that one unit would use up all of her money. Now, hypothetically, she could probably go with a cheaper unit for less cost, but the question comes to what is she currently making, and would the additional income from that one Airbnb that's small justify the time she spent it? So all of that really comes down to what is her time, what is her skill set, and what are her abilities. Now, if she's truly determined, and I believe anybody that is truly determined to make it happen, she can make it happen. But I would advise her to study her market, study the Airbnb business plan, and do a lot of research before putting out the $30,000. Because once it's gone, it might not come back. But if you do enough studying, if you invest in the front end, you'll save it a lot back end, and you'll make a lot of money. Those dollars will come back with friends, and she can eventually have a very comfortable lifestyle.
Okay, it's time for the questions that were submitted earlier this week. And so we're going to do kind of like a speed round of questions. Yes. So you just answer as quickly as you can, first thing off the top of your head.
Cool.
All right. First question is from Aaron Malvarado, and he's asking, how much time does your Airbnb business take from you every month?
Not much. I have a property manager and a cleaning crew and a construction crew. So I have a model where it doesn't take too much of my time.
When you first started?
I was hands-on, and I dig into something. So I'll go and I'll put 100 hours into something so I can kind of perfect the process. And then once I have that process set up, the structure, and then I put other people in place, and then I step out, and then I have to spend as much time. So I'm gonna say you have to put in 40 hours a week, nights and weekends if you have a primary business or a primary job, until you can understand and perfect the process. And you truly are not going to learn the business until you do it yourself.
Is it better for you to Airbnb a property compared to a year-long rental?
Depends on the location.
Large house versus smaller units?
Depends on the location.
How to get the deal with the owners, and what is the best strategies to get the contracts?
Figure out what the owner wants and then supply them with that. If the owner's concerned about security, offer them more security. If the owner's concerned about headache, offer them the more monthly rent. So figure out what they want and repackage it and deliver what they want.
Okay. With Airbnb, CapEx considerations versus long-term rentals, is that the same thing?
So CapEx considerations compared to long-term rentals. So if you have a long-term rental and you're not going to remodel it, meaning the kitchen and bathrooms, then there isn't really much CapEx. And with an Airbnb, normally you're not going to rent an Airbnb that's ugly because you're not going to remodel the kitchens and bathrooms. It would be a super rare scenario where it would be helpful. So what you're going to do is you're going to be putting out all the furniture. And if you're putting out decent furniture, you're putting out $7,000 to $15,000. If it's a big place, it could be as much as $25,000. So in that scenario, your capex could be more for an Airbnb than an annual rental.
What are some Airbnb fees to keep in mind?
So Airbnb has the standard fees. From you as the owner, they'll take a 3% credit card fee. But to the person renting from you, they'll have the property taxes and they'll have their Airbnb cut. Roughly speaking, that can total about 25% of what you're charging. So if you're charging, say, $1,000, they're collecting about $1,250 to $1,300. So if you can start bringing people onto your own website eventually, they can start booking from you directly and have a reduced cost. And it would increase your strength in your business because now you can not have Airbnb hold you hostage.
How do you run an Airbnb home from another state or another country?
So it's really about how well you build out your team. If you build out a great team, you have a property manager, you have a cleaning crew, you have a construction crew, or if you have a very good property manager, they could know a cleaning crew and a construction crew. They can really run the business well. So you could rent it from another country, or you could partner with someone locally and earn your profits that way. So a lot of people that invest with me, they're in other states and some in other countries. And they put their money with my company and we invest together and acquire properties and we list them on Airbnb and VRBO and other sites as well.
Is it all really worth the hassle?
Depends on the location.
Location.
Figure out what the market wants and supply them that. That is the goal. You have to give people what they want. Don't force people to take what you have. And as long as you do that, you can have something you particularly like. Make sure you go to the area that wants what you're wanting to offer. So I prefer very modern Miami, New York style penthouse properties. I really like that style. But you guys have not seen that style on my Instagram because the market I have here loves the whole chill coastal cottage vibe and they're willing to pay for it. And I like the vibe as well. So I'm going to provide them exactly what they want and I'm going to surpass their expectations. I enjoy it, they enjoy it. But it would be really cool if I can go with my ultra modern, high-end, penthouse style condos eventually. That'd be nice too. But when I find the location that wants that and willing to pay for it, I'll do it.
Someone asked, what is an example of adding or updating with luxurious things in your Airbnb in order to upsell the rental cost?
So with an Airbnb, like for example, in the coastal cottage vibe, I had one client put in the highest end Tommy Bahama furniture. When they took pictures, no one knew it was Tommy Bahama. And the people that were renting didn't understand what Tommy Bahama was. And if they did, it didn't matter to them. They weren't willing to pay extra for it, really. But what did matter is that colorful teal ironing board in iron, in the pink, and the teals, and the yellows, and the greens, and that whole Key West vibe. Those colors with paintings and the blankets and the pillows and those things actually look great in pictures. So when people say what is one of the best things you can do in an Airbnb, have a mural wall that matches the area. Because if someone wants to rent on the water, then they're going to want something coastal. If they're renting in the city, they're going to want to have maybe a city vibe. If they're going to be renting in Nashville, you're going to want like a country music or a music type of vibe. So you want to pick something that matches the attraction of the area. If you're renting in Orlando by Disney, you might want to have some like Disney murals in the house or around the house. Something people could take pictures of and tag on Instagram. That's going to have oh my God, this is so cool because I'm going to Disney and look, there's all this Disney stuff in the house. So, if the kids are coming to see Mickey, maybe have Mickey sheets. Doesn't cost much to add an emotional wow factor. That is what you're drawing. They're paying for a feeling. Supply the feeling. Make that energy there. And you're going to have a lot of return customers. You're going to have people shouting on the rooftops about how great you are.
Awesome. It doesn't look like we have any more Airbnb questions. Can you answer real quick some of these finance questions?
Sure.
Okay. Ronald on YouTube is asking, is there a way for me to invest my retirement 401k into a property investment company? I would like to use my 401k and have the rental income get reinvested into my 401k.
So, DM me and I'll be able to help you with that. What we would do is we would take the money out of your 401k and move it into a self-directed EQRP IRA. Because a self-directed EQRP 401k, when we move it to that account, you can actually use your money any way you want. So at that point, you can use that money to invest into a real estate investment group, and you'll be a part owner. Your IRA will be a part owner of that investment group, and as the rental income comes, it would pay it out to your EQRP 401k. In addition to that, you could buy physical gold with the EQRP 401k. So that means you could buy gold with the money in that account and keep the physical gold at your house. You can also buy Bitcoin with it and multiple other items and have different investment strategies. So lots of options with it. That is one way you can do it.
Oscar asks or says, hi, Baskal. Yesterday's meeting was very helpful. Thank you. Quick question. Can you get a VA loan on a fourplex or is it limited to a duplex?
So I was really happy to help you and your dad. Based off of everything I'm hearing, you guys are going to do awesome. Just keep it up. You're on the right track to really grow and scale your business. Regarding a VA fourplex, I believe you can do a VA fourplex, but I am not sure if the $0 down, because with the VA loan, you can actually get a VA loan with no money down. And I think the ceiling's actually been lifted. Like it used to have a ceiling, and now technically there is no ceiling. It's only based off of cash flow and what you can afford, the monthly payments. I'm not sure. I have to look into it because they changed the rules recently. If the no money down also applies for above 2 units. I'd have to look that up. But good question.
Question here.
Oh, with the VA loan, last point. Just because it's no money down doesn't mean you should also not put any money down. Because there is a lot of fees with the VA loan. And the less money you put down, the more fees and costs and points and interest you're paying. So the more conservative you make the loan, the less it'll cost you in payments and fees and interest rate. Now, sometimes it's worth paying the fees. Sometimes it's not. You have to run a calculation and determine what is best.
Question here from Arturo on Instagram. He asks, what happens when you cash out refi and you have no equities in your home duplex and your tenants don't pay rent?
So I'm going to reword that and try to assume what you're saying. So from what you said, if you cash out refi your property and you extract all the equity after your cash out refi, at that point the tenants aren't paying the rent. Well, normally if you have a duplex, if you have one tenant not paying the rent, the other tenant's likely paying the rent. And that one tenant should be enough to cover most of your bill that you owe. But in the scenario that they're not paying the rent, both of them, then you have to pay for the money that's owed on that mortgage. If not, and you go through a year or two of not paying, eventually they're going to take the property back. But if you do get behind on your mortgages, you do have to understand that you can catch it up later. There's nothing that's stopping you from collecting the money and paying up the money that's due. There's also options to, if you're get behind and you're 3 or 6 months behind, there is options where they put the money due to the end of the loan. So you have multiple options. It's not, just you're late 1 month and you lose your property. I've had multiple people not pay the rent. In 2008, I had 8 out of 23 units not pay the rent, which was the highest that I had. Most of the properties that weren't paying the rent were in low income areas, and I was still able to cash flow, even with 8 empty units out of 23. And again, this is one of the worst markets, and I picked a really bad, I made a bad decision with investing in low income areas. So now I readjusted and reduced the probability of that happening.
Someone asked, how do I get into real estate in India?
So in India, it's not really that much different than it is in America. Find a good property in a good location that people want to buy. All humans across the world function similarly. They want a safe property in a good location that is going to meet the needs that they need. If they're a family, they need a bigger place. If they're single, they need a smaller place. But the point is, great location is always key. And in India, you can still get loans for properties. Save up the money, put the money down, buy the property, rent it out. In India, people will mention that the interest rate's a lot higher than America. Like the interest rate in India, I think is like 12%. But also, you guys have like a very high inflation rates. Your inflation rates are significantly higher than ours. And between our spread between interest and inflation on a property or a property appreciation, we have about a 3-point spread between the interest rate and a property appreciation. Normally. This year we had like 11%, but normally it's 3%. At that same time period, 2 years ago when I was running numbers for other clients in India, same scenario. Based off between the interest rate that they're paying on their loan and between the property appreciation rate was still about 3%. So you had the same return on your investment. So same thing that works here is going to work there.
We have a question here on Instagram. One Tay Jordan asks, why do you say it was a bad decision to invest in bad areas, and where did you invest?
So I bought properties in low income areas, and when you buy properties in low income areas, you're going to run into certain problems, right? When the economy goes down, the first people that lose their jobs are people in a low income area. And when a lot of times people in a low income area, one family member will support 4 people. Well, when the economy goes down, it ends up being one family member ends up supporting like 8 to 12 people. And now we have one person carrying the burden of the rest of the group. And what my uncle taught me a long time ago, he said, your tenants are like family members. Whatever problems they have are going to end up being your problem. So pick your family members wisely, because you could inherit their problems. There's also problems with drug dealing and gang banging, so you have to be very careful about that. Now, would I be willing to reinvest into low-income areas again? Yes. Under the right circumstances, I would, and in the right part of that neighborhood. So I've also figured out where in the neighborhood is key, not just the neighborhood itself.
She adds on to that, you ever thought about renting to those with vouchers in those areas? That way the government pays the rent, not the tenant?
So I've had people with vouchers unwilling to live in those areas. They said, I have a voucher, I can live in a nicer area. So that's part one. Now, if the whole area is bad and there's really no moving, then obviously that's also a possibility. And I still have clients that have vouchers. So in addition to that, just because they have a voucher does not mean they're going to take care of your property. It doesn't matter where the income is coming from. You have to verify that the person is clean. Because I've had people that have vouchers that are just really just dirty, like just very, very dirty, don't clean their place, and cause a perfectly clean place to have tons of cockroaches come. So you have to be careful on who you're renting to. So the thing is, when you're renting to a lower income area, you have to be more picky on your tenant base to make sure that you're not bringing in someone that has, you know, like pets that have fleas and like basically a really simple thing to see is if someone has a car and their car is super dirty, that means your apartment's going to end up being very dirty. Because if they can't take care of their own car, they're not going to take care of your place. It doesn't matter how new the car is. The question is, how are they taking care of the car? It doesn't matter how expensive the car is. It's how they're taking care of their car. If they have a really old, cheap car, but they're maintaining it, they're cleaning it, they take pride of ownership, then they're going to take pride of ownership in your property as well.
Can you share one example of a tenant that you had that it cost you in the long run more than what you bargained for?
So I had two examples. One, and what happens is if you get very, how do I put it? If you become very nervous and let the market affect you, what's going on in the outside world, and you start being nervous and scared and you're like, oh, I'm just going to rent it to anyone real quick so I can bring in some type of money. What I learned is sometimes no money is better than some money. I rented to a person that I probably shouldn't have. A few people I probably shouldn't have. And that person moved in after we remodeled the place and it was clean and painted and everything. And within the first month, stopped paying the rent. And after we kicked them out, by the second month, we went in and I'm like, what's this ugly wallpaper that they put up? Like, who puts up brown wallpaper? Like, you ever seen those walls where it looks like there's like, it's the walls where they put up the turf, the textured grass, the turf on it? Imagine that, but it was like brown and weird looking. So when I went up close to it, the whole wall was actually cockroaches, live cockroaches. And I'm like, I get the fact that you're not going to pay the rent, but you're not going to keep your place clean? You're going to let it come to this extent? So you got to be very careful. If something seems off, then be careful. Second problem. During the same time period as 08, I had a property, 7 units in a nice downtown market. I still own the property today. It's a great property today. And in that property, I was pushing myself to rent it quickly. So I rented to one person that was a regular tenant, paying regular income that moved down from New York. And they were just off, they were just off. And then there was another guy that was a veteran on a voucher. And so the money was coming in from Section 8. And he was also off, right? Like he said things that I should have known. Like he said things like, I have stubbles on my face and he gets 75% disability. I'm shaving my face more to cause the stubbles to become worse. So the Veterans Affairs would give me 100% disability. And I'm like, why would you forcibly damage yourself just to collect 25% more of disability? So I rented to the guy, and obviously, if your person is telling you they're trying to manipulate the system, what are they going to do? They're going to try to manipulate the system in their behalf against you as well. So, and not only that, they go and then one bad apple will ruin the bunch. Well, those two people were so negative, they caused all the other tenants to either become negative and act like they're not going to pay their rent, And the good ones moved out because they didn't want to deal with those problems. So I had a 7-unit property that was running well, rented it to 2 bad eggs, apples, whatever, and caused the whole property to malfunction. I finally just came to it. I said, I don't care about the money. I'm basically just told everyone I'm evicting everybody. And I let everybody notice that I'm going to evict them. Whoever's not paying their bills, whoever's not taking care of the property, whoever's whatever. So the tenants that were fine in the past, that were trying to slowly, that were kind of acting up, they kind of got back in line. They started acting respectful of the property again and stopped trying to play the games that those other guys were feeding into their head. Because the bad tenants will feed into their head. And there's other people on Instagram that say the same thing. Like during COVID, the bad tenant would go and tell all the other tenants, don't pay your rent because the government said you don't have to. The government never said don't pay your rent. The government said if you cannot pay your rent and you can supply proof, then pay something, what you can afford to pay. And you also have to show a whole bunch of documentation as well. And at the end, if you cannot pay anything, then you have the ability to stay. So, but those bad eggs, bad apples, we're trying to convince other people to become bad as well. So everyone can be bad with them, creating a mob mentality of, oh, all of us say we're going to do it, so you're going to be stuck. I don't think people understand that most properties are owned by mom and pop operators, and they don't have a crazy bank account that they can afford to let people live for free.
How do you compete to keep good tenants? Any tips or incentives?
If you buy in the right area, you don't have to compete to keep good tenants. They're going to be coming to you. Buy the right area, you're going to have a lot of good tenants coming to you.
We have a question here on Facebook. Lee asks, what are some early indicators a low-income area is going through a renaissance or maybe a good future investment?
So normally you're going to see like a couple of blocks away, they already went through the Renaissance. So you're going to be kind of buying a couple of blocks off the line. So if there's this imaginary line where you're like, okay, this is an imaginary line, and on the other side, everything's really hot, and on this side, it's not. So you want to buy a couple of blocks on the other side of the line to get the property cheaper, and if things go well, within 2 years, you'll have your property values increase. But there is certain factors that I found, like when I bought my 7-unit, I felt like the property was undervalued because it was 2 blocks from the water, they had really great restaurants, it was right by the baseball stadium. I was like, this is like really cheap, like 7 units for $500,000. And then, things happened and the market went bad and I ended up buying it for like $335,000. So I ended up buying it for less than $50,000 a door. And today, it's worth over $250,000 a door. So I was right. So you can basically make assumptions based off of geography and what's surrounding you, the natural geography and what you believe people are going to have a draw. Or you can base it off of the city expanding in the nice and expensive area constantly growing. Like you see that a couple blocks out, they're demolishing these homes, building brand new huge houses. That means, eventually it's going to come down to you. Or it could be like, for example, the properties I'm buying now in St. Pete, there's going to be a $2 billion complex going to be built. It's going to be building 7 skyscrapers. And I'm buying a bunch of properties that meet my requirements near the new buildings that they're going to be building. So they haven't even broken ground yet, but I'm probably going to be a 10-year project. I'm buying ahead.
Awesome.
So guys, if you have any questions, I'm more than happy to help. I go live every 2 weeks, Wednesday at 9 p.m. I have an accounting firm, insurance agency, and a mortgage company. So if you need help with any of those, I'm happy to help you. I'm happy to help bring your game to the next level. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube. Lots of content coming on YouTube. Lots of good stuff coming. So I wish you guys the best. If you are looking to invest and you want to kind of get into the properties I'm doing, there's a lot of partnership opportunities coming up. So DM me, invest, and we'll get back with you on our investment opportunities. So one thing to remember, most of our opportunities involve big tax credits. So if you have a big, high income earner, if you're making $250,000, $500,000 a year, most of our deals have huge tax incentives between 100% to 200% of the amount invested. So you get huge tax deductions as well. God bless you guys. See you next time.